Good morning and welcome, everyone. You didn't know you were going to go to summer school today, did you? Thanks for coming. We really are honored today by the presence of our guest, the Honorable Gina McCarthy, the Administrator of the Environmental Protection Agency, and also in attendance is Dan Misla, the founding Executive Director of the Catholic Climate Covenant, also members of the Chicago Sustainability Interfaith Partnership, and other leaders that are concerned about the environment. The last time I spoke with you on the occasion of the environment by Pope Francis, we met in a 100-year-old building that had been retrofitted to conform to today's standards. And today, we're in a new building that was purpose-built not only to have low environmental impact, but as a school, a place where the next generation is taught how to live in harmony with God's creation. Being in a school today reminds us that the challenge before us as a nation and as a world is to promote environmentally transformative behavior through education, as well as education through action. Thus, you will see, as you already have downstairs, solar panels on our roof, but also a weather station where children track the climate. And by the way, pardon the plug, but we're still looking for some donors for more panels, so don't be shy. It's worth noting that while this building dates from 2011, Old St. Mary's Parish was established in 1833 and was the site of the first Catholic grammar school in Chicago that was established in 1846. So this is a place where history and the future meet in a very vibrant affirmation of the power of faith to shape a city and to change its destiny. We are also making sure that the next generation of our priests understands that a commitment to environmental stewardship is part of our ministry. St. Joseph College Seminary, completed in 2012, holds a gold LEED certification and has a green roof, a high-efficiency lighting control, and heating system. Our commitment is not new. For example, the Field Operations Center for Resurrection Cemetery has been heated with a solar system since 1978. As an Energy Star partner and EPA program that helps business and individuals save money and protect the climate through superior energy efficiency, we have set a goal of benchmarking all of our 2,700 buildings. While it is a considerable undertaking, we have to set the example that it can be done and must be done if we are to fulfill our sustainability goals. And let's be honest, this entire effort to protect the environment for future generations involves some very difficult choices in the future. However, these choices will be difficult if we all do what we can now to protect our common home. And so I respectfully invite other organizations and individuals to join us in assessing their physical plants, their homes, their operations, and making a commitment to more responsible management of our limited resources. Today is important because it celebrates one of the hallmarks of our Archdiocese. We want to build a partnership with the broader community. The progress we know today is a result of partnering with like-minded individuals and organizations in the private and public sectors. They have welcomed our participation, and we have been proud to join with them in calling for accountability and good stewardship of our common home. Those who do not think religious organizations should have an opinion on climate change misunderstand the purpose of the former and the moral dimensions of the latter. We are called to care for those sickened by pollution, house those displaced by environmental calamities, and heal the spirits of those, especially our youth, who are disheartened by a world where human survival is in question. We are eager to be part of the solution, but we share the burdens of an aging infrastructure, limited funds, and increased for the other organizations represented here. So, as the Holy Father urged, let us not be afraid to say, we need change. We want change. Nothing less than a reordering of priorities will make the difference. We welcome environmental policies that balance the imperative to preserve human dignity with the need to encourage commercial success. We applaud regulation that recognizes that we are accountable for the common good, not just to this generation or the next, but to those born in the next century and afterwards. And we embrace partners in prayer and work who help us make this case to those who need to hear it. Let me add a word about someone who is not here today, the late Cardinal Francis George. He got the ball rolling on this Energy Star partnership. His foresight in this area was one of the last gifts to the Church of Chicago, and I am committed personally to making sure it will be part of his legacy. I'm so now very pleased to introduce to you EPA Administrator McCarthy.
Thank you so much, Archbishop Cupich, for all of your leadership and your amazing words. It is such an honor to be here. I will admit that I spent 12 years in a parochial school, but that was an awfully long time ago. So it is wonderful to be back and to see how far we have come to this beautiful building. And thank you for your leadership. I also want to recognize Dan Misla from Catholic Climate Covenant for all of the work that he has done with us. I want to recognize that Senator Durbin's state director is here. Where are you? Oh, could she make it? There you are, back there. Clarissol Duque, thank you very much for all of your work and for the Senator's leadership. And I want to also recognize the tremendous leadership of Mayor Emanuel. He has done an unbelievable job moving forward to look at the challenge of sustainability and to bring an action plan to the table to make sure that Chicago provides the kind of leadership you always have on these issues. And I want to recognize Susan Hedman, who is sitting in the front, who is the regional administrator for EPA in this area, and also recognize the Principal Martin for opening up the doors today and having us spend a little bit of time with the kids as well, which is refreshing for all of us, mainly because they're fun, but also because they remind us of why we do what we do. So it is great. But President Obama calls climate change one of the greatest challenges of our time. And he doesn't just mean an environmental challenge. He means an economic challenge. He means a national security challenge. But he also makes it very clear that we're working not just for the health of our planet today, but for future generations. And he makes the case very compellingly, as does the Pope and the Archbishop, that this really is a moral issue. This is an issue that demands action now. And in his encyclical last month, Pope Francis called on every person living on this planet to join together in the defense of our common home against the threat of global climate change. And Pope Francis reminds us that it's always the least who suffer the most. It is always the least who are the most in danger from climate impacts. And the Archdiocese of Chicago is answering the Pope's call. This February, they partnered with EPA's Energy Star program as part of their commitment to climate action. And with this step, they've become the first U.S. Archdiocese to commit to benchmarking and tracking energy, water, and emission performance, the very first in this country. And we're hoping that they're setting an example for faith communities across the country to follow. We're proud to partner with the Archdiocese, the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops, the Catholic Climate Covenant, and faith groups of every religion who are committed to caring for our shared home. The Archdiocese presents just one step in Chicago's progress on climate action. Under the Sustainable Chicago 2015 Action Agenda, this city has made remarkable progress towards its ambitious climate action goals. Buildings across Chicago are seeing gains in energy efficiency as well as millions of dollars in savings, while the city is on track to help bring affordable solar power to hundreds of homes and businesses. That's exactly the kind of innovation that EPA hopes to accelerate with our Clean Power Plan, which we will finalize later this summer. Because when we cut carbon pollution that's fueling climate change from our nation's plants, we will energize the economy, and we will help create jobs of the future while we protect public health and safeguard those vulnerable communities that are most at risk. And the Clean Power Plan will help the U.S. lead the global charge for climate action, just as Chicago and the Archdiocese are leading the charge for action right here. When it comes to our moral obligation to act, faith leaders have an enormously powerful voice. And when we act together, we protect our health, our economy, and our way of life for generations to come. Thank you all for being here, and again, thank you, Archbishop, for your tremendous leadership.
I understand we have some time for questions for the media. We'd be happy to reply to them.
Could you please also
And
announce
just-
your name and network or email?
And to whom you're directing the question, I think.
For you, Archbishop, I'm with the Sun-Times. I'm Becky Schlickerman. I wonder what you would, what you're hoping other archdioceses might take from your message today, and other, religious organizations throughout.
Well, as I emphasized in my remarks, and the Administrator McCarthy did as well, we're hoping that what we're doing here can be replicated in other communities, faith communities, also within the Catholic Church. And I know that there are those communities already at work in trying to respond to the very inspiring message of the Holy Father as an encyclical. So we want to do our part. And I think by everybody doing their part, we're going to be inspired by each other's activity.
Joyce DeRiga from the Catholic New World for the Archdiocese. Can you explain what the benchmarking, what all that means to the schools and parishes and all that?
I'll get that. Yes, what we're trying to do is make sure, and I think this is across the city as the mayor has challenged, is that people understand what energy they're using. Because the most important thing is this is an education process. It's an opportunity to see where your money is going, how much energy you're using. And that gives you the information you need to start using energy efficient products and operations to start saving money. The most important thing about energy efficiency is it pays back consistently. Usually it might be a little bit more upfront, but the payments continue after that initial expense. And what you end up doing is instead of paying high energy bills, you're able to hire more teachers. That's the kind of trade-off we're looking for. It's a better future for our kids, but frankly, it's a much better present day as well. But if you don't measure and you don't account, you won't understand just how much opportunity there is to finance the kind of changes you need and how much money it's actually going to save in the end. Today, we're actually, this week, EPA launched a new challenge for buildings across the country to try to compete for becoming more energy efficient. Every year, thousands of buildings do that. They do it only because they want to get some press for that. They want people to see it, but frankly, they mostly do it because it's an opportunity for them to save money. The more information, the more education we can do around this will show you that action on climate change will not only be beneficial for our kids today and our future, but it also will be a tremendous opportunity to save money and to grow the jobs of the future. That's how we are going to do this together.
Kelly Bauer with DNA Info. What would you say to parishioners who don't believe in global warming and object to it being discussed at Mass or in parochial schools?
Well, I would say, first of all, I want to make sure that people understand the Holy Father's encyclical is not a scientific document and is not only about global warming. It does accept the fact that there's solid evidence and science out there about it, but it really can't be reduced to that question. His point is that, as we heard in both of our remarks, this is a moral issue about being good stewards of the limited resources in this common home of this planet. And so we would like to approach it in terms of the stewardship of the resources that we have from a moral standpoint. And it's very clear that not only are we seeing deforestation, we're seeing different calamities because of the environmental changes. We're seeing pollution of streams and waters, and also the other degradation that's going on in the environment, that we have a moral responsibility to realize that in all humility, we have this earth on loan in our generation. And we have to make sure that we pass it on to the next generation with a sense of solid stewardship. I think that's the answer that I would give to that question.
We have time for one more question.
Mike Puente with WPEZ, Archbishop, you mentioned it a little bit about how some conservative groups say maybe this is not a place for the Pope or religious leaders to be talking about. Could you elaborate a little bit on why you think it is?
Well, I think it's important to realize, as the Pope says is an encyclical, and we have heard today, that this is a moral issue because it has to do with the sustainability of our planet. This is a real pro-life issue from our viewpoint, because we're talking about an environment in which everyone can prosper. And we also realize that the poorest of the poor in the world are the first who are impacted by the degradation that goes on in the environment today. We have an option for the poor. We make sure that we give them a place at the table. And the Holy Father's encyclical is to make sure that the world stands up and takes a look at what's happening in the environment, especially as it's having an impact on the poorest of the poor. So it's a very strong moral issue from our viewpoint.
Great, thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to steal some of them.
Thank you.